All right, a very good morning to you. Welcome along to Monday Mornings Off the Ball AM. We've got Alan Quinlan with us in studio in about 10 minutes' time to talk us through an epic weekend of rugby from an Irish perspective and from a Scottish perspective. We're all Scotland fans from time to time, right? We're also going to talk with Gary Breen about a pretty interesting weekend of football. The spinelessness of Arsenal is top of the agenda, but the rebirth of Romelu Lukaku and, unfortunately, the complete lack of touchline histrionics from Antonio Conte, because he's a good guy. He really needed to win yesterday and to somehow poke the big bear that was Jose Mourinho, but it didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen. It wouldn't have happened anyway. They'd kind of realised that this was very childish from both parties, that they were feeding into the entertainment complex of the Premier League.
But that's all it is.
But Antonio Conte doesn't like that sort of stuff. I'd say Jose was like, yes. I'd say there was part of Jose Mourinho that was like, I kind of hope I lose this game, because that way I can get really angry and I can engage myself and indulge myself in the spat even further. But unfortunately, they won, and he was like, oh, well, that's a bit boring, isn't it?
You were at the Kerry-Galway match?
Kerry versus Galway in Tralee yesterday afternoon. Great win for Galway. Looked very impressive. May 13th, they're going to beat Mayo. Whether or not they'll get out of the Super 8 group is another question, because they're motoring very, very well.
Not too early for them, is that? That's the old, just they peaked too soon, lads.
Well, there's definitely elements of that, and without question, of course, they've peaked very early in the year, and they have to stay in Division 1, but there is elements about them, and strong elements about them, that would suggest that they're going to put up a big fight against any team in the Championship this year, particularly in the Super 8 when a team has to go to Salt Hill, or even in any provincial ground. Of course, they have the Hoodoo in Croke Park, haven't won a Championship game in Croke Park since, 2001, since the All-Ireland final that year, so it's...
What have they got about them? Like, there was an injection of pace for the goal. It's always really hard to mark or to deal with pace in any sport. Obviously, it's one of the most important things. And so when you're able to do that kind of thing, it suggests that obviously you're always going to be able to do that. What else have they got? Well,
they suck you in so well in terms of that breaking on the pace, as in it's not like an ordinary blanket defence. It's like, get behind the ball there, lads, and break quick. It's a very organised defence where they do leave about 2 or 3 bodies forward, where they play one sweeper who's extremely effective, and the route one ball just didn't work for Kerry last night or yesterday afternoon. The kickouts, it's an interesting tactic they've got. They bunch everybody in the centre of the park, so if I'm the goalkeeper, all my backs are right in front of me, bunched in the middle of the park. The Kerry players essentially have to grab onto the jersey to stop them making those runs out to the wings, and that's where the keeper is going short with the kickouts. Then runners, about 4 or 5 runners every time out to the wing from a central position. Kerry did manage to handle that after a certain amount of time in the match and got on top in terms of the momentum, but there was I wouldn't call it a fracas, but there was certainly a bit of a
melee.
I'm not sure what it was. It was a very strange moment that completely killed all of Kerry's momentum midway through the second half, and that was the winning of the game for Galway. After that, they just calmed down a little bit. They got their process back together again, and they killed the game, which was the most impressive thing about Galway yesterday. Another thing that I noticed yesterday with Galway, and this was, like we've talked about the Paddy Tally effect with Galway in terms of what he brings to them as a footballing county, but what he brings in terms of, I don't know. Yeah, exactly. Like cynicism is very, very impressive. And Gareth Bradshaw yesterday with one of the most impressive feats of time wasting I've ever seen. So the ball was
supposed to be down with this type of thing, isn't that or that's not really something? Go on.
Well, you can judge this yourself. So the ball is on the Galway tee. It's a Galway kick out. There's about 72 minutes on the clock, if I recall. There's 7 minutes of additional time. So Galway are scrambling. They just want to get this game over and done with. So the ball's on the tee. Gareth Bradshaw just peels away from his man, runs out behind the goal, gets another ball, kicks it onto the pitch, runs away from the ball, runs towards the ref, and is like, ref, hold on, there's a ball on the pitch, you need to stop the play. All the Galway players just stand around static, and I think it's Liam Hassett who has to run onto the pitch to kick the ball away to get the game restarted. I'm like, bravo, Mr. Bradshaw, that's a new one which I hadn't particularly seen. And maybe it's kind of giving too much credit to Paddy Tally to say that he's instilled this sort of stuff in them, that they've got
it's an edge to the players themselves now.
Maybe these players are just grown up.
That's what coaching does. You give yourself plausible. Oh, we never told them to do that specific thing.
Exactly. Maybe there's just an edge to these players now that they've grown up and they're like, you know what? We're not going to be the team that make it to a quarterfinal every 2 or 3 years. We're going to be a team that makes it to a quarterfinal, and we're going to win that quarterfinal. Of course, around our quarterfinals this year, and that suits this Galway team very well. I think they're well able to handle the rigour of a league campaign. They're very well able to handle the rigour of a Super 8, and they'll be delighted they've got to play Mayo so early in the Championship.
How did Clifford do?
Class. Clifford this is my reaction to Clifford after yesterday. He was absolutely class. Like the excitement when he arrived on the scene was something else. And he certainly didn't play poorly in his first couple of games. But yesterday was the first time that we were like, okay, he is the real deal.
Why? What happened?
He kicked 6 points as a start. He was Kerry's best player, without question. His kick passing is something which I don't think many Kerry people had realised was that good. His distribution, his vision is outstanding. He could play centre forward if Kerry wanted him to.
Is he actually a half forward really, and ultimately he'll score his goals ghosting in, or
he could be a half forward for the end of the Donoghue era, for sure. If James Donoghue is fit, and like after yesterday's performance, Kerry need Kieran Donoghue because their route one didn't really work. So yeah, he definitely could. Whether or not he's got the engine that a Donegal Walsh has to keep going up and down the pitch that a half forward requires.
maybe you don't do that though.
Maybe you don't do that.
Maybe he's like, it's everybody else's job to mark him, and he runs across the 40, and that's
the gooch role, the number 11 you stay centre for. Even Declan O'Sullivan in his later years was very, very effective in that role. That could be it. His distribution is excellent, but some of his score taking was outrageous. And I'm not sure if you saw the match yesterday, but that last minute goal chance he had about 20 yards out, Kerry needed a goal, and he probably could have passed it on, but it was going to result in nothing. And he was like, screw it, I'm going to have a pop. And he almost scored from 20 yards. It was a good save. It would have been an outrageous finish to a game if he had netted that, but yes, he has arrived.
There was a stat in I think it might have been John Fogarty's, or could have been Michael Moynihan. Anyway, it's in the Examiner about Mayo having beaten Dublin under Jim Gavin, and it just didn't look like they were ever within an ass's roar of them.
No, it was a 4-point hammering.
Yeah, I mean, it really should have been 5-point hammering, but...
Yeah, unfortunately for anybody who had the spread, they would have lost on the 4-point spread, which was unfortunate for them.
Why would you kick a free to make it a 4-point defeat instead of going for goal with the last kick of the game? Why would you do that?
It's a fair point.
Why would you do that?
It is also, I think the elephant in the room here is that Dublin scored 1-1 in the second half, despite the fact that they were, I would have borderline utterly dominant in terms of possession.
Yeah, completely. What the hell were you doing? Coming up, Schmidt and Gatland, we're going to hear from them in just a minute. The spat was ignited pre-game, and it kind of continued into the aftermath as well. Alan Quinlan's going to give us his thoughts on a brilliant weekend of rugby, unless, of course, you were the England rugby team. So it was really a brilliant weekend of rugby, right? We'll go through the back pages. Going to hear from Gary Breen, Kevin Kilban and Nathan Murphy were at the game at Old Trafford yesterday, so they'll give us some post-match reaction from that as well. And then a full round of everything else that happened in the world of GAA. Some contentious decisions, including second yellow card for the Kildare captain for not having his gum shield in when the ball was kicked out to him by the Kildare goalkeeper, and ultimately Donegal beat them. I mean, fair's fair, right? That's what happens. You've got to get sent off if you don't have your gum shield in. Let's hear from Joe Schmidt and Warren Gatland. The Grand Slam is on.
I thought they were outstanding, and so I apologise to Joe if I upset him a couple of years ago, but been critical of the way that they played. So I thought they moved the ball brilliantly well, and they were so exciting in the way that they played today.
Did that surprise you?
What's that?
Did it surprise you, or did things surprise your team that they changed up like that?
Yeah, no, I think they're really good. So it's credit to Joe and the team and their attacking stuff, and they're definitely going in the right direction.
Look, I played with Getz. I've known him for a long time, and we've been sparring partners for a while at the same time. I would offer the same thing. I thought they were pretty exciting. I thought we helped them be exciting sometimes, which isn't something we're trying to do at all. But I think other people make assessments. I wouldn't say that I look as much at the performance of our opponents once the game is done. I look at our performance, and the performance I'm interested now is the Carabao Cup.
Yeah, Joe Schmidt. It's always easier to be magnanimous after a victory. Difficult for Warren Gatland to pull it off. Yeah, they were great. I really loved that Irish team. He wasn't very happy.
Yeah, I was disappointed with him now, to be honest. His team were second best throughout the whole game. Of course, they had that bit of that threat that we spoke about last week here, and everybody knew they're dangerous with the ball in hand, the Scarlets type game plan, all that stuff. He should have given more credit. Was quite condescending, and we don't like to see that in sport. Give out, have a rant about your team or the referee or whatever. Just being smart like that. I was disappointed. I like Warren a lot. but just saying, oh yeah, they were excited and they were exciting and
Yeah.
they played great.
Well, his mind games bit him on the ass. That's what happened. It was like everything he did last week came back and bit him on the ass. And it's hard afterwards to go, yeah, okay, made a mistake with that.
And it's fine for us saying, oh yeah, we got everything right and they were, you know, the mind games, and Gareth Davies talking about a bonus point win. It's fine for us to say that now. If he'd got the bonus point win, we'd be going, wow, that's some
backed it up.
balls to go out and say that at the start of the week and back it up. But they didn't, and I thought it was very strange that that wasn't really addressed and he didn't play that down a little bit. He actually went the opposite, talking his team up. And look, he said at the start of the tournament he backed him to win a Grand Slam. So it was a little bit disrespectful at the end of the game, afterwards in the press conference, but yeah, the mind games kind of backfired a little bit.
We'll talk about all the good stuff in a couple of minutes' time, but we did concede a bunch of tries. Again, I saw a stat in the papers this morning. Of the 18 games since Andy Farrell's come in, we've conceded 3 tries in 10 of them. Now, like, at the same time, we've also scored 3 intercept tries and all that, so maybe you take those off because that's the type of aggressive defence we have. And it still seems to be a work in progress.
You don't want a plus-minus situation, and same in soccer. If you're 4-0 up and you concede 2 sloppy goals at the end, it takes away it damages the performance a bit. And rugby's the same. You go back to Argentina in November, so many things were right. It was a really, really clinical, good performance, and then at the end, Argentina get a couple of late scores. You kind of go,
why?
This fair goes down.
Yeah. And why is it happening again and again and again?
It's a team issue, and it's a communication issue, and it's a dominance issue out on the field where guys need to communicate better. It's not a technical thing where guys are going up missing one-on-one tackles. I think the emphasis from Andy Farrell's defence is to get off the line, and all the modern day defence coaches are trying to do that. But it's spacing is an issue, and we're quite narrow. And you go back to Argentina at the World Cup, where that outer channel we were punished a little bit. So it's just, and it's difficult off phase play. This is probably the key. Off set piece, line out scrum, you're set, you know where you're going, everyone's pointed in front of them. But it's when the ball is kicked up the field, down the field, there's lots of multi-phases. Someone makes a little bit of a line break. How do you readjust? How do you get that spacing right? And unfortunately, we're still work in progress there, and we need to sort this out, because Joe Schmidt said it himself after the game, so many good things, and then the negative, you're allowing teams back in with so much possession. I think we were 13-5 down at one stage after about 20 minutes, having practically dominated territory, possession. Completely. We turned the ball over a couple of times in their 22. We lost the line out, a crucial line out 5 yards out. Of course, you give credit to the defence sometimes when you force one of these turnovers, but I think there's a couple of them are a little bit sloppy. So it's an issue, and it's a worry.
How taxing is it on the body, that high line speed that Andy Farrell wants? Is that the reason why we're conceding late in the games, because they're just gassed as a result of this tactic?
It's a culmination and a mixture of the opposition reacting. You know, when you get a score or you're a bit ahead, teams throw caution to the wind, and sometimes it's hard to defend that. Switching off in your mind a little bit, fatigued a little bit. But it's for me, defence is all about communication. When you're tired, when you're under pressure, and that's the real intrigue of sport, under pressure, to having the ability to communicate. That's why we do all the fitness work, the skill sessions under pressure, the gym sessions, all that kind of stuff. When you have a bit of pain in your body, can you think? How can you communicate? Who do you talk to next to you? How can you identify what's in front of you? You know, when you're running across the field, have you the ability to turn your head and look at what's happening here? Are the guys staying back, or are they going to come back this side? Yeah. Do I number up? Who's my man? So look, it's not a major issue, but it's a worry that, and the disappointing thing is, because the team are working so hard, they're so honest, they have huge character, that they just need to fix this and get better. And look, if you're cut open by a better team, you accept it. But I think some of the scores we have conceded against Argentina, the Italian ones, and the other day,
they're not dissimilar. That's the issue. If they were
it's
all
in the wider channel. So, one pass has taken out 4 or 5 players at times.
And the way Scotland played against England, you could see that they had clearly identified that kink in the English defence. The Finn Russell pass for a couple of those tries, the second Scottish try in particular.
That's risk-reward scenario there from him, to be fair, and they'll do that. So they'll come to Dublin, people thinking, well, you know, Ireland are a better team, they'll win, home soil, all that stuff. So that kind of forced you to go, let's play, let's go after it, let's chase it. And then one of these passes comes off like it did on Saturday. Suddenly you have a huge sense of confidence, self-belief, and say, well, we can do this. The opposition, then it has a negative effect in their mind. So it's a concern and something that just needs to be worked on in spacing and stuff. It can be fixed. Jared Payne was always, he was brilliant in that 13 channel because he was a real communicator under pressure, and you have dominant figures. We hear, when I played, you hear about defence captains. So Drico, Dars, they were brilliant at, because they were there so long, at barking at the forwards to get inside, to get outside, to realign, to shift inside, to get the faster guys out in the outer channels, all that kind of stuff. So you just need more.
The talk after the game was that Chris Farrell was really good at that as well, that actually he was loud. Somebody went, oh yeah, he was at least as good, if not better, than Robbie, which is interesting enough as it is. But you know, for his first full Six Nations game to be as vocal as he was, and he seems to be that kind of character anyway, so clearly somebody who has a long future.
But also, yeah, exactly. He was brilliant, and I think you need to get a variety between that line speed and sometimes just having to sit back and concede a few yards.
Yeah.
So it's great having the mentality to take away that space and that gain line and win the gain line. But if you do that too hard on the inside, and there's a couple of these loop passes or passes in behind players where they're really deep and they can get that width,
suddenly you've lost 60
hard.
yards.
So it's just a spacing thing, and maybe sometimes going a little bit softer when you're under pressure.
How did you find that cohesion between Aki and Farrell at the weekend?
Good. It's not. I wouldn't blame them because there's so many other guys. You're in different positions. Sometimes when there's a kick chase or kick retreat, you're running straight back and you don't have time to switch in. In an ideal situation, you want the faster guys on the outside off phase play, and the forwards maybe in around the 10-12 channel. The tighter areas, you want forwards and you want backs on the outside. Sometimes that doesn't happen. And if you're down numbers, if someone makes a line break, it's very hard to readjust and sprint all the way back and have a perfect defence, because you can't get off the line then because you're retreating. There's a great story of when Mike Ford came into Ireland around 2000, and all this defensive stuff and this terminology was new to us. It was like pillar at the side of the ruck, post was the next guy, and pivot was the guy on the first receiver. And the idea going to Twickenham and playing England in 2000 was to push him to the outside a little bit, be really strong on the inside, push him towards the touchline, and then attack him there. Give him a little soft shoulder, if you like, on the outside, and number up there and attack the ruck. And that we worked on that all week, and there was huge emphasis. And this was new terminology. And I remember I didn't start the game, but I was part of the extended squad. And I remember being in the tunnel area as the team were coming out, and Mike Ford was on about the defence and remember this and that. And Peter Classy came out the door and he said, well, look, it was called turf wedge. So turf was forward and wedge was push out, but staying connected to the guys inside and outside. And Peter Classy, I can't say the exactly what he said, but he said, if you're unsure about that turf wedge, that effing turf wedge, just come up and in. And Mike Ford just put his hand over his face and went, oh my God, I think we were beaten 46-6 against England. So my point is, Claude just kind of threw the plan out the window that everyone was trying to work on and created confusion. And that's what defence is, and scattered defence is confusion.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about some of the good stuff. So Chris Farrell speaking with Oisin after the game. Have a look.
Chris, Joe said during the week that he'd been talking to you for a couple of years. What kind of things has he been saying to you all the way along? What kind of tips has he been giving you?
Yeah, probably for about 3 years that I've been in France, I've been talking to Joe a little bit. I've always had a few phone calls from him. I've had a few messages with clips, timings of clips from matches that I've been watching. He said, you could have done this better, you could have done this better defensively, you could have done this. He's just given me a little bit of advice on how to play the game and a few things that he's seen and the knowledge that he has, and the very small details is what he prides himself on, he prides this team on, and those kind of things is what's benefited me from dealing with Joe. And
when he first got in contact, how big a boost was it for you? Because sometimes when a player goes away from home, that can be that, and they disappear, we don't see them again?
Yeah, look, initially I'd spoke to him before I even played a game in France, so I was just like, look, he just wants Irish players back in Ireland. It's nothing, I hadn't played a game, so I hadn't impressed him in any way. So and then I got to play some games and played well, and year 2 got to playing better, and he's still chatting to me, and it just strived me on, kept my goals lifting. All I wanted to do was pretty much come back and play rugby in Ireland. So he definitely helped. Firstly and foremostly, that was what I was doing. I was coming back to play for Munster, and Munster, the team that it is and the history that they have, was such an honour to me, and obviously what's coming in the back of that is such a bonus.
And finally from me, you were filling in for Robbie Henshaw today. That's not an easy thing to do. Did Robbie chat to you about what is expected in that position? Did you chat to Joe about that? How did it all work?
No, I don't think it needs to be said what's expected when you wear a 13 jersey with Ireland, because of who's been there before and what they've done between Gary, Robbie and Brian Driscoll before that. Look, they've all been unbelievable, and there's a certain expectation there, and I know it because I've watched them for the last 6, 7, 10 years, whatever it's been, and they've all done amazing things there, and there is a pressure without a doubt. But for me, it was almost like going back to the Fiji game that I played in November, just trying to fit in, and whatever else comes with that is a bonus again.
Yeah, not the greatest move Ulster ever made, letting him go, is it? I mean, what the hell were they thinking?
No, it's hard to kind of, when they're younger guys, to be 100% sure, but he's been a great find
Even
for
getting
Munster.
him back, like... Oh,
yeah. I don't think he wants to go back because of... Everybody wanted him. Sarries were trying to sign him, Bordeaux were trying to sign him. A lot of top clubs were trying to get hold of him, and you often hear Bernard Jackman and Mike Prendergast, who were his coaches in Grenoble, talking about the quality.
Yeah.
And I would speak to Prendy in the last couple of years before he came back, saying this guy is just an unbelievable player. He has so much ability, so great hands, great physicality, and he's our go-to man to get the ball in his hands, and he can put massive, great passes and get us width. So,
like, you think, again, we always talk about the step up to international stuff, and the step up to our biggest game since the last World Cup must have been huge for him. So we're not seeing anything like yet the full range of his talents. He hasn't fully become comfortable playing in international rugby yet. That's despite the fact he was brilliant. So there's still much more to come.
Yeah, so he's not throwing any of those big wide passes because it's not kind of programmed in the system, the way we play. That's not to say that he won't do that if there's opportunities, but I just thought his whole application was superb. Made a mistake at one stage, got up a little bit too quick in the defensive line. Halfpenny gets the ball outside him, and I just thought his scramble defence was fantastic. Late on in the game, Scott Williams, it looks like Wales are going to counter-attack. It's one-on-one with an awful lot of space, and Scott Williams is deceptive. Farrell just doesn't give him that. He just doesn't shoot across too quickly to give him the opportunity to step inside him. He nearly shows him the outside, just knocks him down. I was so unlucky for the turnover as well. Made some great carries into heavy traffic. Just some great carries just before the Bundyaki try. He goes through the Wales front row,
like
nearly gets in line.
Just enough
and that's the thing for a big man. He's 6'4", 17 stone. Have that little bit of deception, and then if he has to run at a guy, he ran it bigger at one stage in that first half and got 5-6 yards. That is massive for your recycling ability for the forwards of guys coming on, and then Murray's just sweeping the ball away.
Is it an injustice to Farrell to say that Schmidt made pretty significant tweaks to his game plan to make sure that Farrell wasn't going to get caught out in this game? Obviously, it worked a treat.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think, look, first and foremost, when you have a guy coming in, and any player, it's kind of like making your debut. You want to do the simple things well. He'll develop and get his own confidence, and try and develop his game more. So I think do the simple things well, and that probably has been the message. He probably felt that pressure, starting in a Six Nations game, playing in that 13 slot. But he's a very relaxed guy. I think he believes in himself a lot. And I think the benefit of being in the Irish system since the start of the year, training with the group, November would have benefited him massively. And he played with full of confidence the other day. So Wales are a good defensive side, and they're very, very, very quick. Sean Edwards is very shrewd. They target the ball a lot. We saw a couple of times guys carrying in the ball stripped out of contact. So yeah, hopefully we'll see some more variety, because I think he offers more than just putting the head down.
Yeah, a bit more variety. Like it seems weird to be in any way critical of the team that puts up 37 points, but it was far too close considering we dominated possession, we dominated territory. Like we allowed Wales back into that game in a way that the clinical side, the best clinical sides, the All Blacks, would never do.
Yeah, really kind of concerned me is we're 13-5 down after 15 or 20 minutes when we dominated so many
It looked like we could have killed them.
Yeah, we could have. Johnny missed a couple of kicks. We could have scored from another penalty we got under the post. And then they go up the field, they get a penalty, and then Gareth Davies, one attack.
Yeah.
And we concede, that was a soft score as well, particularly around the fringes.
Whose fault was that?
It was our collective fault, I think, again, because I think there was a missed tackle on Aaron Shingler. So he's running close to the ruck. I think, I don't want to name names because I'm not 100% sure, but that fringe defence was soft, and he's a brilliant carrier, Shingler. He gets a gain line, and it's so crucial in those tight spaces to get a gain line. Suddenly, Rob Evans comes around as well, picks and goes, and you're in behind the Irish defence, and then it's scramble situation. Bundy Aki was lucky because if that try wasn't given, it was a yellow card for him.
It probably should have been a yellow card anyway, right? Like it's still a yellow card offence. Why doesn't he get yellow carded? And there was one, we scored a try when there was 3 penalties.
Yeah, and I thought Samson Lee came in from the side of them all when we're going forward. So yeah, you could argue that one from Bundy Aki, is he going to grab the tackle? They didn't show it enough in the replays to have
Speaking of the replays, who put the replay of Rob Kearney kicking the ball out of when he's on there? Who did that? They don't do that in France, they don't do it in Twickenham, they don't do it in any sport in the world. The whole point of home advantage is you control the big screen and you go, well, we'll show that after the next play.
Yeah, because it was a big screen rather than a TMO spotting it, wasn't it?
Totally big screen.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It was, yeah, it goes back, yeah.
If I was Joe Schmidt, I would be controlling the controllables.
Yeah. If you were doing the videos, you wouldn't be showing that.
No.
Get the scrum over with quick and
exactly,
play it
and then afterwards, like, oh, look what you missed, ref.
It was a correct call as well.
I mean, it was a correct call. That's the whole point. You don't be giving your advantage away. Good losers, England, of course. You know, the fight was Scotland's fault. The referee did them. Nothing to do with their back row being 3 second rows, effectively. Their team effectively playing 5 second rows at this point, or the 6.5, Chris Robshaw as he was. Also, Mike Brown. Oh, you guys are giving that about Mike Brown. Well, I'm sorry, Eddie, but you whipped him off after 2 mistakes. So, screw you, Eddie Jones, is my short summation.
He did an interview afterwards with Martin Gillingham from ITV, and he's practically attacking the interviewer, which again...
Good man, Eddie. Let's
take it. Take your beating, stand there, be kind, be nice, be humble. And unfortunately, he wasn't.
Fake those things.
Behind the kind of narkiness that you see, he's actually a nice bloke. Genuinely, I've met him a few times, but he has this complex issue. He's a bit of the, how dare you beat us type scenario, and I think that's the kind of approach he had with Martin after the game, and it was disappointing, and he kind of stares him down right after the interview as he's walking away. The issues for England are, have they, and this is the question that maybe has to be thrown out there, have they peaked? Are they as good as we think they are? They're a better side than they showed on Saturday, and that's rugby for you, because sometimes if you don't turn up, you don't get it right, the opposition there's this incredible surge of urgency and aggression from them. Think about
the Twickenham game against Wales, where a bounce the ball goes their way and they're, this is great, life is really easy for us. But they don't score for 60 minutes against a Welsh side who, it turns out, you can score against. And that's them at home in their pomp, with full of the piss and vinegar of a 2-try early lead. And I don't know. I'm glad that we've seen this now, England under a bit of pressure, having to defend and being tackled properly. Because it did seem like for a couple of seasons, everyone was like, oh, geez, England are great again.
They have issues in certain areas. The back row, there's no balance to the back row whatsoever. Underhill is sitting on the bench. He should be playing 7. Robshaw's a 6. He criticised him before he took over himself after the World Cup, saying that he wasn't a 7. He's now playing him as a 7. With all the depth in English rugby, I just can't believe that, they can't get a proper balanced back row. Vunipola is a massive loss to him, because he was a real focal point for the way Jones wanted to play. But playing Courtney Laws at 6, and I'm a fan of Courtney Laws. He's an incredibly abrasive, good player. He's a second row. Toja is a second row. Launchbury's a second row. So
yeah, you've the best second row in the world.
3 into 2 doesn't go. So pick 2 of them, put one of them on the bench. That's just the reality. Pick proper back rows. There's enough of them in the UK. Simmons is a great player. He got injured, but you think that balance in the back row is not right, and they were completely dominated by Watson, Wilson, and Barkley. Barkley was outstanding, and Watson, and then Stuart McAnally. He's a converted back row as a hooker. He's getting turnovers as well. So
like it
doesn't matter who you are. If the All Blacks turn up and they're not winning their breakdown, they're in trouble. So that's what happened England on Saturday.
Good stuff, Alan. We'll let you go because I know you've got to do an old spin on the radio. Andrew Porter was also in great form, speaking with Oisin afterwards. Have a look.
Talk us through that game, because it looked crazy from the sideline. I can only imagine what it was like on the pitch.
Yeah, it was a very physical game. I think we knew that was coming from the Welsh, but I think it's great that we could get the win, especially with a bonus point.
Talk to us about your own game, because obviously you were replacing Tadhg Furlong, who's one of the best in the world, but your coach seems happy with you. I think all the analysts and pundits seem happy with you, but what was it like out there for you? Yeah,
obviously quite big boots to fill with coming in for Tadhg Furlong, but yeah, like the coaches and players really helped build my confidence throughout the last 2 weeks. But yeah, like I thought I went alright. So yeah, I'll look to build on that, hopefully for the next game. What were those first couple of scrums like? Was there nerves, or how did you handle it? There was a few nerves, yeah, but I think tried to get myself in the best position I could. So, and then with Bessie helping me out beside me, and the talent we have come like our second rows and back rows, yeah. I think it was a pack effort, I think. And do you feel vindicated now for switching sides of the scrum? I'm sure when that switch was made, or when it was put to you, maybe you doubt, but it seems to be working out quite well. Yeah, like a lot of doubts at the very beginning, but I think it's coming a bit clearer now, I think, so yeah, happy with that.
Not bad for his 5th ever game as a starting tight head.
It's incredibly good. It's the amount of comparisons being made across the back pages and inside the sports section today with all-time greats from all those players who are in the early stages of their Ireland careers is incredible. You're talking the likes of Richie McCaw. There hasn't been an exact... That's obviously with Levy. There hasn't been an exact name mentioned yet, but certainly around Chris Farrell, everybody's like, look at that man wearing... the number 13 in his green jersey. Even Farrell in his post-match interview on TV was like, you know, there's always a lot of pressure when you're wearing the number 13 jersey. And he kind of, it seems that he revels in it. It seems that Porter revels in this kind of being the Furlong understudy, and to a certain extent now a Furlong competitor. And to a certain extent, we've got an embarrassment of riches at tight head prop. After Mike Ross, we were thinking, God, there's a dearth of options here. We're going to start, you know, doing tight head prop training camps and start to teach junior infants how to be a tight head prop, because we need one.
Or go shopping in Georgia, which is kind of how it works.
Exactly. And like John Ryan comes on, wins a huge penalty that... To a certain extent, when that happens in the game, I'm like, we've won the game now.
Yeah.
Thank you, John Ryan. You've won us the game. Obviously, Porter was immense.
You two were counting your chickens.
Yes.
As it seems, we're the team. We're like, we're 10 points up there, never going to score. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
That was quick.
By the way, we won by 3 points on Saturday. We didn't win by 10 points. We won by 3 points. Like, I mean, it looks great when you scroll back on Wikipedia in 10 years' time.
They don't pay out.
We hammered Wales at home. We won by 3 points.
Well, that's the thing. Like, the ball got over the halfway line, and you're like, oh, hang on a second here. If we cough up a penalty, they'll kick that happy with the draw.
Yeah.
To poop our party.
Yeah.
And there was definitely at one point somebody was the wrong side, and you were thinking, uh-oh. So, but look, I mean, in his piece today in The Times, Eddie O'Sullivan is just remembering over the course of the Grand Slam year in 2009. There's a try here from Brian O'Driscoll from a couple of yards out. He says after he shipped a very heavy tackle, if the HIA was in one of the games, was it the England game perhaps? In the Scotland game, there's a line break from Peter Stringer. Stringer not noted for his line breaks. A bunch of weird things happen to get you to a point where you actually win a Grand Slam as opposed to winning a championship. And, you know, maybe not conceding that penalty and Lee Halfpenny not kicking it from inside his own half or on the halfway line. That's the thing that gets you to the point where you can then do a Grand Slam and talk about a Grand Slam.
Can we talk about Rob Kearney's drop goal effort in the first half as well? I think that moment is going to be completely forgotten about, but we need to pay homage to that. Fair play to you for going for it. That would have been incredible if it had gone over, but unfortunately it was a terrible effort, and it was kind of funny in hindsight. If that had happened, like if we were sitting here after a defeat though, we're like that's just one of a slew of things we could have done better, but I just thought it was mildly amusing, and we can't forget that moment.
He's kicked one of those, right? There was one from like close to the halfway line one time, not for Ireland. Tommy sent for Leinster. I remember a vague recollection of like this monster. I was like, wow. Was it in one of those drawn games?
It might have been.
It doesn't actually get the Ireland, Australia. Yeah, that's the only Carney drop goal ever, Tommy. You can hear the in the background there. Wikipedia, not as fast. It hit the post that time, so didn't even score that one. Definitely, there's one I remember from quite far out. Maybe somebody will tweet us at Off the Ball or leave a comment under the one against Claremont for Leinster as well. But anyway, no, the one I'm thinking of definitely is an Ireland jersey from miles out, and that I think has emboldened him to try it in the future.
Yeah,
in tears before the game too. That was
incredible. Yeah, but also we're pointing out the whole Murray thing because for anybody who was watching that Racing game before Christmas, it's like, oh God, Murray off the tee, and from that range he was going for them. Maybe a little bit further out when it came to the Racing game. It was like near the halfway line, Conor Murray, and it just takes. It does take balls to be able to step up and do that again and again after missing again and again.
Oh, but he kicked in New Zealand, the New Zealand game in Chicago. I mean, were you in Chicago? Did you go?
Well, I was left off that particular excursion. I'm talking kind of this season when it has become more of a thing that, like I suppose the Six Nations last year, people were like, oh, Murray, this wasn't a fluke in Chicago. This is a thing where Murray actually kind of practices.
There were 6 people practicing kicks in the warm-up, we were told afterwards. So obviously they had doubts about Sexton's fitness, and there was some rumours coming out pre-match that Sexton had some kind of injury that got nixed pretty quickly.
It doesn't make any sense because like if he's not fully fit, then the inverse would have happened. His kicking would have been okay and his in-game play might have been a bit off, whereas he was outstanding as a game manager and was terrible off the tee. So that doesn't make sense that he would be unfit.
You could have a foot injury, or
maybe if it's a very specific foot injury, but I don't know. It's not like he was striking
back.
Maybe that
they're
could be
saying there's some kind of. But then look, it's hard to really take at face value what the missives coming out of the Irish camp are when it comes to injuries, because they don't really have a policy of giving everybody full details of that. That's their policy, and it just means you can't really trust what they're saying. So
yeah.
Look, these wins are great. It'd be nice to do them in a more controlled fashion.
Nah, I wouldn't. I love the kind of, well, okay, it would for the grand scheme of things. It's like, yes, I would feel more confident for our World Cup hopes next year, or indeed the Grand Slam hopes in the near term, if we had actually killed them. But in actual fact, we're going to look back and we're like, that was an epic match that everybody was screaming inside in their living room watching this thing.
Wales could have won it. That's the problem. Wales could definitely have won that.
Yeah, but I'm trusting Team Andy Farrell and trusting Team Joe Schmidt to get this thing right. Let's hope so.
The big news from outside of football and GAA yesterday was that Tiger Woods was pretty good at the Honda Classic in Florida. He ended up finishing 12th, but he made a bit of a charge, and with 5 holes left to go, or 4 holes left to go, was just 4 strokes off the lead, ended up finding the water and having a double bogey, so dropped off. But his driving stats were pretty good, his distance was pretty good, his ball control was pretty good, and he was wearing red on the 4th day of a tournament, so he back, baby.
Lump on Tiger for the Masters. What is there any more kind of appealing moments in sport than a potential McIlroy versus Tiger face-off on the last day of the Masters? I know it's more likely that Tiger's going to be involved in the final day of a tournament than Rory is, given current form. But that's like a sporting moment that we need to happen before Tiger finally.
Pretty soon, and like this year, next year, more likely. I don't know. Rory's form is very concerning.
Very concerning. I don't think it's going to be this year, unfortunately.
Pep Guardiola says the treble is on as the other headline. So I'll run you through these. Spineless Neville's extraordinary rant as City crush pathetic gunners. It's odd when Gary Neville is saying stuff on TV is the back page headline, but it was quite remarkable that it had such an impact, obviously. And then there's the crying Arsenal child in the crowd. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. So this one, there may be a treble ahead.
One of many newspapers quote that headline, I think.
Is it, yeah? Tao says, not really even Tao of the morning to you. Man alive. Treble is on, says Pep, as City lift cup and Jose targeting home run after Chelsea victory. So it looks like Man United. It looks like the top 4 probably said at this point. There may be treble ahead. The Sun as well. We'll talk a bit more about how happy Brian Cody was at full time in that tip game as well. Just having the crack with the tip manager afterwards on the field. So you're like, Tip haven't learned a lesson. When the zombie is coming back to life, you have to stake it in the heart.
Yeah. And
then you blow it up, and then you send all the pieces up to space, and you hope that they don't somehow manage to come back like Terminator 2.
Well, you blow it up, you blow the pieces up again, and then you send them up to outer space.
No. We'll give them a 1 point win, let them score 221.
Yeah.
A rookie mistake from Tip. And then leagues apart, City 200-1 for quad next season after the Arsenal romp. 200-1 next season.
It's doable. I mean, the oil money isn't going to stop coming.
The oil money ain't going to stop anytime soon.
The
And they're going to buy a load more players.
like it depends. It's worth. It's 200 to 1.
It's a fiver.
It is a fiver. Like he's on the back of the Times as well, saying the first of many for Pep. Of course, on the back of that yesterday. I'm not sure. Do you want to have a look inside the back page of that? There's an interesting one to do with a couple of horses in the Mullins yard.
So this is a story that obviously we've been very interested in. Mark Suster, the racing rider, 175,000 sterling gambled on Mullins trio to lose. An investigation into suspicious betting patterns of 3 beaten horses from the yard of Willie Mullins has found evidence that 200 grand was wagered on the horses to lose. This is the Irish Turf Club yesterday confirming that the inquiry, being led by its head of security, had been triggered by the drift in prices on York Hill 11 to 8 to 7 to 4, Mellon 5 to 2 to 7 to 2, and Carter Mackay 11 to 4 to 9 to 2. So not huge movements really from York Hill and Mellon, but obviously sizable enough amounts of money to move the prices that. And here's one of the most interesting things here. It's understood the investigation has tracked down the accounts used to place the bets, but the identity of those behind it remains unclear. Now, anybody who's ever opened up a Betfair account knows that you've got to jump through quite a lot of hoops. They want proper photographic evidence and proof of address. So you can't just go and set up anonymous accounts that easily. So it shouldn't be that hard to find who the beneficiary owners of the accounts that are laying those horses are. And once you get that, the noose begins to close on who's doing this and how it happened.
It's very strange that we would see this with such high-profile horses, I'm going to say. Like, I'm not entirely sure. Does this sort of stuff happen and we don't know about it potentially? And these are obviously huge horses that everybody knows.
It's yeah. And look, sorry, I should have obviously said that no one suspects that there was any involvement of anybody from the Mullins yard in that. It's just that the gambling syndicates could actually be in Asia. So, it's, obviously no one wants to read about that, but it does really call into question exactly what's going on around the betting patterns around the sport.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of more back pages this morning, and the back of the Irish Independent is going with the rugby. We believe, that's the Chris Farrell quote, man of the match. Farrell insists Ireland have Grand Slam in their sights. Tony Ward is saying that fringe stars have given Schmidt selection dilemmas, and Rory O'Connor is saying that Wales have shown Scotland and England the way to hurt Ireland. On the front of Sport Monday then, in the Irish Times, they're also going with a picture from the rugby. There's Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton there celebrating. And Flying Scots beckon before any grand design, says Jerry Thornley. You've also got Guardiola hopes final flourish can help push for a treble. On the front of the Irish Examiner then, they're going with that Manchester City story this morning. There's a jubilant Vincent Kompany. Company profit, Pep, first trophy payback for City owners. It is remarkable to just think that this is actually the first time this...
Tab of the day on that one though, Tomas the Tank. Veteran O'Shea.
Oh yeah, Tomas.
There you go. 12th All-Ireland final.
Yeah, incredible. Fair play to him. 36 years old.
Oh, a week short of his 40th birthday.
Is he?
Yeah.
No, sorry. I thought he was 38.
Well, Tony Lean says he's a week short of his 40th birthday. Unless...
Right, okay.
Maybe I
got that. I got mixed up between Cluxton and
40 in
Monster.
June. Yeah.
40 in, right, okay. I saw 38 somewhere. So 40 in June.
Happily take 36 on.
Well, no, I got mixed up with Cluxton there.
You carry that sticking together, what?
I got mixed up with Cluxton there for a moment. On the back of the Guardian then, it's Blue Moon Rising. Guardiola wins first trophy of City reign and vows to lift more. And finally, it's Vincent Kompany again on the front of the Daily Telegraph. City slickers crush spineless gunners. Guardiola captures first silverware, but Wenger's time appears to be up. Yes, indeed, his time is definitely up. He's definitely not going to survive by dint of weird kind of backroom dealings in the Arsenal hierarchy. That basically, when I say weird backroom dealings, I mean this kind of lack of ambition that may exist at a football club. You know, it's not exactly conducive to...
Their ambition is to make money. I mean, that's what all football clubs are, businesses.
Well, yes.
And Arsenal are brilliant at making money. They're like top 10 in the world.
Not so good given the lack of Champions League income.
But you don't need it as much as you used to. I mean, the Europa League, a good run in the Europa League, finish semi-finals, maybe win it. Who knows?
Well, they're not going to win the Europa League. It would be truly bizarre if they did.
There's a reasonable chance of them winning the Europa League. The Europa League is crap.
They're not going to beat AC Milan. They don't stand a prayer against Atletico Madrid should they ever come up against them. Atletico Madrid are going to win the Europa League. Arsenal are a mile off them.
Well, let's wait and see. Gavin Muldoon says Rob Kearney got one against New Zealand Maori for Ireland A in 2006, and Fish Bandit on YouTube, how you doing, Fish? Says he got a monster for the Wolfhounds years ago. I presume that's in the same game. I don't actually remember that one, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I just imagined Rob Kearney picking over a giant drop goal.
Do you dream of certain things? It's like, what would be the ideal rugby scenario here? Oh, Rob Kearney pinging over a drop goal. Maybe you just dreamt it, Ger. Maybe that's what happened. But just coming back to the Arsenal thing, obviously we mentioned a couple of those spineless comments over the back pages, and that's obviously from Gary Neville yesterday. But the best thing about Gary Neville was he was making those comments and they were like, look at what you've done, and there was a picture on screen of a kid crying, which obviously isn't funny at all, but it was hilarious when Gary Neville was like, look at what you've done.
That poor kid's life is ruined.
Yeah, and we were looking up earlier on just to actually find the video of this, which you can catch yourself, and should you type into Google or YouTube or whatever it is, you get 49,400 results for Arsenal fan crying at this point. It is truly remarkable. And Gary Neville, bang on the money. Look at what you've done, Arsenal. You've made children cry. You were that bad. You were so bad at football. It's a very grim club to be a supporter for.
Aguero's opener isn't going to get as much love as maybe it deserves. It's like an absolutely stunning piece of on the run, perfectly timed, perfectly weighted. Like Sergio Aguero, we've come to take for granted the genius of Sergio Aguero.
Yeah, we probably have. We've come to take
the little push. Tommy says that I'm using my body, and the Arsenal player going, "Oh look, he pushed me." It's like it's football.
Yeah, Mustafi turned out to be a really crap player. He's really terrible at football. Callum Chambers, really terrible at football. Granit Xhaka, really terrible at football.
Yeah, okay.
Mohamed El-Neni is also really terrible at football.
Grand, but Aguero, like.
Well, I would say that goal is lessened because it's Shkodran Mustafi and David Ospina are the people he is in the middle of. Like, it's much better if it's David De Gea and even Chris Smalling. Even Chris Smalling would be a far more impressive defender to have beaten than Shkodran Mustafi. He's really turned out to be horrible, but it was
way to ruin everybody's parade there. Okay, Fred McHugh says Sexton had his best game with the ball in hand. Christopher Toole wants to know why did Ulster let Farrell leave, and Kevin Callan says Gatland was like a wee child in the pram. He was like a wee child in the pram. Sean Ruan though says I'm looking forward to Galway getting drunk on their own success and probably in Monroe's over the next few months while Mayo show them who the Kings of the West are in May, just like they've done in recent seasons. Oh wait,
yep, that's exactly the point. Galway will beat them in May. Galway will then get a rude awakening sometime in August.
Gary Breen's going to join us in just a minute. First, though, the immediate post-match thoughts of Nathan Murphy and Kevin Kilbane from the steps of Old Trafford after Manchester United beat Chelsea 2-1 yesterday. Have a look.
So, big win for Manchester United here at Old Trafford, coming from behind to beat Chelsea 2-1. They're now 6 points clear of Chelsea in that race for the top four. Half an hour into this game, when they were 1-0 down, it looked very, very different.
Yeah.
The way they set up, how did they manage to stay in the game? How did they manage to get back into it?
Well, it did look very different after what, half an hour when Chelsea took the lead. And I think the way that United is set up, I felt in maybe the early parts of the game, I think it was quite negative. I think it was all about destruction. It was all about stopping Chelsea. What were Chelsea going to do to try and hurt Man United? And I think overall that was the case. I think it was certainly the man marking job. We saw it last season from Ander Herrera on Eden Hazard. Today it was Scott McTominay. He just had the role, stop Hazard. Wherever Hazard goes, you stop him. On the other side of the midfield, it was more Willian for Chelsea playing as front in the front three for Chelsea. And Matic had his eye on Willian. Wherever Willian went, he was trying to get close to him. But specifically for McTominay, it was a total man marking job. And once Chelsea went in front, you thought, what United going to do? How are they going to try and get themselves back into this game? And I think you touched on it in commentary. It almost came from nothing. Alexis Sanchez was involved. Lukaku, I thought, was excellent for United. He got the goal. And once that ball was put through to him, I think he did brilliantly to hold Alonso off. And then it was just a pass into the net. So that's how they got themselves back into the game, yeah.
Scott McTominay is only 21 years old. Today was only his 4th ever Premier League start. And he's man-marking Eden Hazard, one of the best players in the Premier League, one of the most influential. And he kept him very quiet. Yeah. Hazard's taken off with 15 minutes left. But Hazard's a smart player. Antonio Conte is one of the most tactically adaptable managers in the Premier League. How was it that they were able to do the exact same thing that they did with Herrera with McTominay today?
Yeah, and it's a great point. And I'd be very, very surprised. It didn't look it, obviously, on the pitch. It probably wasn't said, but I was so surprised during the game that Antonio Conte didn't say to Hazard, look, if they do a man-marking job on you today, take whoever it is, that midfield player, away from the central areas. Take them away from their own comfort zones as well, because if McTominay picks the ball up centrally in possession, he's going to be quite comfortable. But if you take him away and say, force McTominay to play as a left back, force McTominay to play as a right back, go and stand in an area where you might not necessarily have an influence on the game from our point of view, but you're almost taking one of Man United's men away from it. Pat Nevin had spoke about that last year when he came on about the Ander Herrera man marking, and I don't know why he didn't do it, but he didn't. And I think
is that selfishness from Hazard, that he still wants to be the main man, overly involved, or actually if he goes out and just hogs that left-hand touchline, maybe he doesn't see quite as much of the ball, but he's almost he's taken 2 Manchester United players out of the game.
Yeah, selfishness is probably, whether or not Antonio Conte's maybe had that conversation with him, I'd probably say it as the manager as well, put that message in his head. But certainly in the game, as the game's progressing, if you're on the pitch, I would think to Hazard, if I'm Hazard, maybe in that position, I'd say, well, tell you what, I'm going to drag you away. I'm going to force you away from that. So maybe it is a little bit of selfishness, because I think Hazard, he wants total involvement in the game. He wants to have an influence on the side with the ball at his feet. He might not necessarily see the ball, but I think he would have had an influence on the game without necessarily touching it. So yeah, he could have done that, yeah.
If Chelsea had got on to win that game 1-0, there would have been just 2 points separating second place from 5th place. But as it is now, United are 6 points clear of Chelsea. 3 defeats and 4 for Antonio Conte's side in the Premier League. Is that it? With the way that Morata's playing, with some of the struggles they're having around the pitch, do you see a way back for Chelsea in the race for the top 4?
Well, they're certainly still in the mix, yes. I think we all know that. They're right in the mix for it. But it looks to me, with momentum that's going with Tottenham at the moment, it looks as though Tottenham are playing the better football. Tottenham are simply a better side than Chelsea at the moment. So Chelsea look like they're falling away from it. It could be the last hit for Antonio Conte to try and beat Barcelona, to try and stay in the Champions League. Yes, that's understandable. He's actually given that chance to go on and do that. But the longer this season's going, the more we've continuously said it looks like Antonio Conte is leaving Chelsea. Now all of a sudden, it just looks to me like it's just waiting to happen. Chelsea will eventually get rid of Conte. Conte will eventually leave Chelsea. Whichever way it's going to be, he's going to leave Chelsea. I can't see him being here beyond this season. So the difficulty now is for Chelsea. What are they going to do? Are they going to change it up and then hope they get a boost at the end of the season and make sure they get the top 4, or are they going to stick with Conte? I think they'll go with the former. I think they'll probably, if they go out to Barcelona, I think they'll probably say to Conte, look, it's not working, we'll get a new manager and look to get a boost at the end of the season.
Well, it's not going to get any easier for Chelsea either, because next Sunday Kevin and Dave are going to be just across town at the Etihad Stadium. It's Manchester City against Chelsea, and it'll be live here on Off the Ball.
Yeah, good stuff, lads. Thanks very much for that from Old Trafford yesterday. Now it is time for us to join Gary Breen this morning. Gary, good morning to you. How you doing?
Good morning, guys. I'm very well, thanks.
We'll talk more about Arsenal and the Arsenal Man City game in a minute, but just some brief thoughts on that. I think it's very difficult now to see Chelsea somehow rescue that part of the season, and actually, I mean, they're still in it, obviously, given the points differential isn't insurmountable, but just the way things have been going for them and what we know about that squad and how quickly they can fold their tents and go home.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've predicted it really about 3 or 4 weeks ago in terms of all the dramas, all the sound bites that were coming out of Stamford Bridge in terms of Conte trying to take on the hierarchy there. There's only ever one winner. And then you're thinking that maybe they can, they've got some real quality. Suddenly they go 1-0 up yesterday and you're thinking, okay, this would be a very, very important result. But they don't see it out. And we're listening to the lads there. You just can't see anything other than Conte leaving in the summer. He keeps doing sound bites to suggest that he will stay. But the reality is he's only doing that to make sure that he gets his payout. And it's not something we've never seen before with Chelsea. Even the supporters there, they love Antonio Conte so much, but they just know this is par for the course of being a Chelsea supporter, that the owners will change the manager. And you have to say, in doing it, and as regularly as they do change managers, they still remain successful.
There does feel at this point like Chelsea aren't really in the market for the world's best players anymore. That their ability to pay top dollar season after season after season has changed, and their model has definitely been to buy all the best young talent, flood the market with that, and try and turn the club into some kind of profit centre, which would suggest that they need to get the next manager decision. It has to be absolutely perfect.
Well, yeah, of course it does. Bearing in mind what's happened at Manchester City in terms of their financial muscle, that used to be Chelsea in years gone by. They can't compete on that level. So you're right, I think there has been a change in remit in terms of them wanting to develop their own younger players, but it's so difficult to break through at Chelsea. That's the problem that they have, is that even by stockpiling all the best young talent, the fact that they don't get regular football in first team and develop as players stagnates their progress. And that's the problem you have. The fact the likes of Lukaku, De Bruyne have to go elsewhere to get the games to become the players that they are now. Salah also. So it is a frustration. It's a big challenge ahead of them. They obviously have to keep some money back for the new stadium they're trying to build, so they're going to be struggling that way. And I think the chairman, the owners, have got a mindset towards that. So you're right. I think it's going to have to be a manager who can develop young players, but it'll be completely in contrast of what we've seen Chelsea in terms of them being a Premier League powerhouse.
Gary, do you reckon Eden Hazard looks back on his career to this point and kind of regrets not taking his talents elsewhere, that he's stayed at Chelsea and hasn't gone and achieved the all-time greatness that his talents potentially could have done?
Well, I think a lot of that can be aimed at him. That sometimes when he's on his best game, he's a fantastic player to watch. But even in the second season under Mourinho, he went missing a little bit, and that's the problem you have. I think a lot's been questioned by his teammates and his managers, and he didn't particularly like it. That does he have the desire? Does he have that mental strength, that will to be the best in the world like Ronaldo did? We remember Ronaldo at United as a young player and him saying to us, listen, I'm going to be the best player in the world. And you're thinking, well, I don't know about that, but just his desire to be it. I'm not convinced that Hazard is that type of mentality. The only thing that would be concerning for Chelsea fans is the fact that he's always caught in a move to Real Madrid. He's always mentioned it. If it goes quiet for a couple of months, it still comes up again, his desire to work under Zidane. Whether or not Zidane stays there and how Real Madrid cope in the Champions League remains to be seen. But there's always that soundbite coming from him, and that will be the frustration with Chelsea supporters.
Okay, let's move on to the City-Arsenal game. Most of the fallout has been about how spineless Arsenal were, and we can definitely do that, but we should at some point go, City are a special team and they're playing really well, and Sergio Aguero is an absolutely sensational figure in English football history now.
He is. Listen, of course he is. And prior to this final, we knew how talented he was in terms of his stats. And even as the modern-day centre-forward, it must be so difficult to mark him because he's always playing on your shoulder. He's always moving you as a centre-half into places you don't particularly want to go. And then when he gets sighted a goal, he finishes it. But as much as we talk about Manchester City and give them all the credit, they didn't play anywhere near the standard that we've seen throughout this season. And that just shows you why Arsenal are getting criticised as heavily as they are, because they were woeful. And it comes on the back of, did you guys see the performance against Östersunds in the Europa League? It was even to a worse level. And that's the concern, is that as much as we see Arsenal putting Crystal Palace to the sword and Everton to the sword, and then Arsenal fans saying, oh, listen, we've got a spectacular team now, Aubameyang, Mkhitaryan, you just know that type of horror performance is only a couple of weeks away. And that's the problem that Arsenal have, and I just don't see it getting any better. I've said to you guys before, I think Arsene Wenger's an absolute legend. I think he's a brilliant manager in terms of what he's done. But like players get old, managers get old. And I just think it's time for him now to step away.
He won't, though. That's the thing, isn't it? Like, we were talking about this a little bit earlier on, and Eoin, obviously, as a heartbroken Arsenal fan, really wants the club to move on. But he makes so much money for the owners, and the owners aren't in it because they're Arsenal fans and they want to see the club have some reflected glory. They're in it to make cash. They're making loads of cash. And we've seen, how easy it is for a new manager to come in and not fully understand exactly what the requirements of the job are, and for that to go wrong. If they finish in the top 6 every year for the next 3 or 4 years, they will think.
No, that's not enough. That's not enough. Top 6 is not enough for Arsenal now, not in terms of the money with champions. I know what you're saying in terms of the television monies and stuff like that, but I think it's got to the stage now where the Arsenal fans will be even more vocal now. And I think the media are on it as well. I think there has been some slight adjustments behind the scenes from Mittlentak coming in from Borussia Dortmund. The very fact that Arsenal have signed Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan at their age is in total contrast to the philosophy of Arsene Wenger in terms of bringing young players in, developing him. I think he'll enjoy the fact he's got them, but that is never a deal he'd have looked to have done previously in terms of the money that they have to do. So I think Arsenal are aware. I know what you're saying about the owners. I think they'll want Arsenal to go out on a high. Of course they will, but I don't see this carrying on for another year after this summer.
It seems to me that the club is almost in denial about where they're at.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned those 2 signings there, they were almost kind of painted as a rebuilding phase at Arsenal, but in fact this is pure and utter regression.
Well, listen, do you remember the excitement in terms of the whole debacle with Sanchez in terms of him going to United, and suddenly Arsenal get Mkhitaryan, and lots of people saying that was good business. It wasn't good business because it was pure luck. They were not in control of that situation at all. It's like saying you win a lottery and it's good business. It isn't. And the fact is that they comes in and suddenly you think, okay, Mkhitaryan, Aubameyang, I'm thinking, well, this is the type of quality you associate with Arsenal in their heyday. And then suddenly they get comfortably and comprehensively beaten in the North London derby, and all that hope just goes out the window. And now suddenly these last couple of results, and you look at Arsenal and think, have they got the ability to win the Europa League? Yes, they have. But but have they also got the ability to implode against any quality team? You don't even have to be a top team to beat Arsenal. And there's some good teams. I don't think AC Milan are at the level that we normally associate with them, but certainly if they come across Atletico Madrid, they wouldn't lay a glove on them.
Yeah, a point Eoin made earlier on as well. I think that they can potentially avoid them until the final and get a fluke, and we've seen stranger things happen than teams turn it around, but it definitely feels like we've watched the malaise of Arsenal over the last 10 years or so. So who's next? Who is the actual right manager, and how do they go about securing that person?
Well, this is the problem, and I think a lot of Arsenal fans, the frustration they would have had is that they would have hoped that Wenger would have gone out on a high after one of his FA Cup wins, and there were some talented managers available then. I don't think there's a standout candidate as such in terms of being able to go into Arsenal now. I know people are saying about Luis Enrique, maybe the Atletico Madrid manager, but that would be a contrast in terms of what is happening at Arsenal. But they need it, because the very fact that it was highlighted in a cup final that players are walking, and it wasn't in isolation. It wasn't one player you could turn around and it stuck out like a sore thumb. It's because you see it quite regularly. It's only because they lost a high-profile final yesterday, but you watch Arsenal regularly, as we do, and you know that those guys just walk about in midfield because it comes from the top. There's no leader in that team to pick people out. I mean, even when Wenger got a stay of execution and then spent money to bring and invest in the spine a couple of years ago, of bringing Mustafi in from Valencia, Xhaka and Perez at centre forward in terms of a pacey centre forward, they have been woefully short. And for that reason alone, managers have been sacked in terms of the poor showing that they've done in the transfer market. If Mustafi is Arsenal quality, I can't see it for the life of me. And I don't judge him by other centre-halves. I judge him by Arsenal centre-halves, the likes of Bold, Adams, Eoin, Sol Campbell, William Gallas, Koscielny. He is no way near that level. And for him to concede the goal that he did yesterday, not just Aguero's, but look at the second one in terms of initially giving the foul away on the edge of the box against Sane, then being done by wing play by Company out in right wing to be beaten so easily to then concede the corner. It's just woeful.
Go on.
Do you buy the argument that there is this, I suppose, when it comes to the likes of Mustafi, that there is kind of a systemic failure going on around them? Well, obviously there is, but say if you take the best centre-back in the world, say if you took somebody like Sergio Ramos and put him in the heart of the Arsenal defence, do you think he would succeed?
Yeah, I think he would he'd certainly make a difference. I think at times, because of the way the team's set up, he would be exposed, but he'd be grabbing people by the throat. There's no way he'd be allowing midfielders just to run around and walk around. There's no way those leading type of centre-halves, and not just iconic ones like him or John Terry, even leaders who not have the quality that he has individually would adjust. But the only thing you have is, and I've said this before, is that Arsene Wenger protects those players so much. He wraps them in cotton wool. And if anyone criticises, the likes of Sanchez, a couple of seasons ago, he called out and said, listen, we're a good team, but we lack the mental strength. He was reprimanded straight away by his manager. So you can imagine Sanchez has turned up, he's gone into that changing room, he's looked around at the quality and thought, yes, this is a good signing for me to go to Arsenal. But then realised very quickly the lack of mental strength there. And he must have thought, I've been sold a pup here in terms of coming to this club.
You talked about potentially getting somebody like Diego Simeone and how that would be a change of style from Arsenal's perspective. Like, Wenger was that style. It's not necessarily Arsenal's style. It was Wenger's style, and it hasn't been successful for such a long period of time. George Graham's style was completely different and was ultra successful over a short period of time for Arsenal. So they could easily have somebody who is a marrying of the pragmatism of George Graham and also the European nous of somebody like Simeone, despite the fact he's Argentinian, obviously, but you know what I mean.
Listen, as a manager, Joe, I'd take Simeone in a heartbeat. I'd love to see him there in terms of the intensity he creates. But you're right, I grew up watching George Graham and Don Howe before that, and suddenly George Graham turns up, and it's an attritional style of football, but suddenly Arsenal were then competing, winning leagues. So then you're right to say that when Wenger come in, he did marry the two, he inherited that brilliant back four, and then created some special players, put Vieira, Petit into central midfield. And this is what I don't understand, is that in the first 10 years of his tenure at Arsenal, he was so successful, but he's completely gone away from that. And then suddenly, in every walk of life, when you've done something particularly well and then it's not going well, you go back and think, well, why did it go so well? Maybe I'll go back to that. He never does. He's even going further away from it in terms of creating this team of like total football. This is the fact now. They're not even a good footballing team, let alone lacking the mental strength and the character, because on occasions in that final yesterday, getting to wide positions, the quality of the ball going in was ridiculous. And I think the stage now is that Arsenal are the 6th best team in the Premier League, and they're competing in the European competition that the quality of their squad deserves, and that's the Europa League.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a quick fix. I mean, maybe somebody like Simeone arriving is a quick fix, actually, in that he changes the attitude of everybody in every training session, and you begin to see the quality of the players married to some steel, which there seems to be an absence of, and defensive organisation, and actually that transforms the team into a team who can at least compete for the top 4. But there aren't that many transformative managers out there who you can see, like the other names that will invariably be linked with this job are somebody like Carlo Ancelotti, who just comes in, buys a few.
Oh no, not for me.
Experienced players.
Ancelotti. Yeah, no, I think it's such a massive job, and we've seen it before with the difficulty in trying to replace Alex Ferguson. I think Arsenal hierarchy looked at that situation and think, because of how badly United handled it in terms of their recruitment of Moyes, Van Gaal, they probably thought, listen, it's better the devil you know. But that's a nonsense. They made the wrong decisions, United. It wasn't a case of it was always going to be a difficult act to follow. Of course it was, in terms of an iconic manager like Ferguson. But they just made the wrong appointment. Arsenal just have to make sure that they do all their due diligence and get in a manager who they know coaches, they know has got the mental strength to cope. And I think he would be embraced, whoever comes in. Listen, it's a great job, of course it is. And it's a great opportunity to take Arsenal now when they're probably at their lowest ebb that we've seen in Premier League.
Yeah, I do wonder if Wenger's going to say, no, I've had enough, and actually the board are going to be forced into some kind of decision. I can't see it.
Listen, I can't see it in terms of Wenger as well, in terms of he loves football, and this is the problem. Sometimes you have to make a decision for their own good, and I think the hierarchy there have to do something, because can you imagine now the atmosphere if they go a goal down on Thursday against City? I think the crowd are going to turn. It was horrible, the scenes last season, in terms of doing that, because he deserves so much more than that. He should have a big statue built outside for him. But the problem is, he just won't walk away.
The great news for Arsenal fans is that Thierry Henry says that he would definitely be interested in the job. He used his $4 million a year gig on Sky to go, actually, this job's grand, but really I want that job.
Yeah, listen, Jamie Redknapp's like pushing him there, wasn't it? It was a bit cringeful, wasn't it, in terms of doing it? But listen, I'm not sure that the argument of Henry is at the level that Guardiola was in terms of his coaching ability behind the scenes before he got that Barcelona job. They have obviously identified how talented he was. But just because he done it brilliantly, it doesn't mean that Henry, just because he's steeped in Arsenal history, is able to do it. We need to review the work he's doing with Belgium. How good a coach is he? It's a massive job. I'm not sure that he's ready for that.
I kind of hope he does get a statue erected outside the ground, because you'd see like troops and the boys from Arsenal Fan TV chisel away at it and pull it down. But one last thing, I wanted to get your thoughts on Vincent Kompany. I know we're kind of going back to City, but just watching him yesterday, I kind of feel dirty because of the grotesque oil money that's put into this football club. But it's hard to not feel good for Vincent Kompany after yesterday, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, there was that period where the ball went over the top to Aubameyang, and you're thinking, OK, it's all about Aubameyang's first touch, and it was a brilliant one. Literally put the ball, he's ready to strike it. And we know how quick Aubameyang is. And suddenly, Kompany's gone through the gears and just lent into him, physical strength, took the ball away. It was Kompany that we associated 3 or 4 years ago when he was a dominant centre-back in the Premier League. And he's been crippled by injuries. And we talk about mental strength, and he's obviously shown a lot about to come back. But on his day, what a brilliant centre-half. And it was lovely to see him produce that type of quality yesterday. Do you keep him around the squad for like as long as he can stand up, or do you just say, okay, we're not going to pay you, 8 to 10 million a year to be a sub? Like, how do you treat that? Well, even when you hear Guardiola, and he's quite matter of fact in terms of describing Kompany, just says, listen, we can't rely on him. He's always injured, and it's not a case of like protecting him and saying, listen, we're going to do it. He's just so cutting in terms of that. And it's factual. You can't rely on him, unfortunately, at his age now with the injuries he's had. I think someone named he's had something like 41 injuries. And, I mean, that's ridiculous. And that's not going to improve as you get older, no matter how much sports science there is. If you are fragile, that's going to continue. And, listen, I don't think they'll keep him around just to have him as a cheerleader. He's obviously a strong character, the captain, a leader as such, but Manchester City can go out and get the next Vincent Kompany, who's like 10 years younger and injury-free. It's a fair point. Gary, great stuff. Thanks a million. Thanks, guys. Gary Breen with us this morning, giving us some thoughts on the football. Yeah, I don't really feel any better. When you think about the highlights of Arsenal season this year, you're talking
not being in the Champions League because they can't get hammered. You're talking the fourth official not adding on any additional time at the end of yesterday's match, so City can't embarrass Arsenal any further. You're talking the YouTube numbers we put up earlier. At least there's not over 50,000 results for Arsenal crying fan. There's only 49,000. Like I think the nadir of Arsenal's existence may have been getting booed off at half-time against Ostersunds on Thursday night with a stadium that was half empty.
Yeah, I mean, at least
nobody there and they still booed them off.
At least they had the excuse of we're keeping our powder dry for the cup final. And if you put in a performance in the cup final, you win the cup, because they got distracted. They didn't get distracted.
No.
They're just shit.
They are just still very, very, very Arsenal.
The Eden Hazard story, it's weird that this keeps happening, isn't it? That these games, he can be marked out of them by like a kid. That was one thing. And the other thing was Pep wore the yellow ribbon for Catalan independence, and he was asked afterwards by Rob Harris about the fact that, so just want a point of information, you support Qatar and everything that's gone on there and their human rights issues.
Fair point.
Pep is like, everybody has to make choices. Getting paid millions and millions and millions to help Qatar.
Probably does colour your view, doesn't it? As in, like, Qatar, as you say, is funding his entire life.
It doesn't in any way diminish the fact that the Catalan people need help and...
True.
Like...
What would the ownership of Manchester City do if Pep Guardiola turned around and was like, no, that's an absolute disgrace, I don't support it at all, in fact I hate what they're doing? Do you think that there's an element of him that's like kind of doesn't care, and that the ownership would be like, there's nothing we can do, our hands are tied here, he's an amazing manager?
Right,
He'd just be gone.
Certainly, I don't know how long it would take, but...
As in gone in terms of life gone as well as job gone?
The relationship would be over pretty quickly, I would say.
I would say jettisoned, very, very much so.
So, a couple of quick comments for you. We all dream of a live stream of Gary Breen, says Loy on Twitter. Good man, Loy. Indeed, we all do dream of a live stream of Gary Breen. You've given us a good marketing idea there.
We've been making dreams come true all morning here. From Rob Kearney drop goals to Gary Breen streams.
Screw you, Eoin. It was somebody got in touch to say it was the Leicester Cup final, but it wasn't. That was Johnny Sexton. Johnny Sexton kicked that. That was like early in the game. It was like, oh, how's this kid going to do? You know, I mean, he was grand coming off the bench, but he's had to think about starting all week. Boom, giant drop goal pretty early on. I was like, he's going to be all right.
Yeah. The stones were there from an early age.
Mustafi is a World Cup winner. He can't be all that bad, says Patrick Conway.
Mustafi started off and I was like, this guy's quite good. And then he got more and more Arsenal, and it turned out he was never any good and is quite crap at football.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier on with, we showed you earlier on a video of taken from Old Trafford. It was Kevin and Nathan doing their post-match analysis. It was really good stuff. It is available on all our social channels for you. Also available on our social channels is what happened in the tunnel aftermath. You've heard so much about these tunnel interchanges between players and media, and Nathan standing there diligently, pretty keen to speak to some jubilant Manchester United players. Here's what happened. Can I have a word, Jesse? Can I have a word, Marcus? Is what? You can't hear off mic. Journalism with a capital J.
Yeah. Goes all the way to the UK. He's going to get his viral moment, and then they just push each other away.
Let's turn to GAA. Really big weekend of action in hurling and football. Dave McIntyre was at the Dublin-Galway hurling match in Parnell Park. He caught up with Míchael Donoghue and Pat Gilroy after Dublin suffered another defeat in Division 1B of the Hurling League.
Míchael, you won handsomely in the end, but you made hard work of it, I guess, so you'll probably look at that as a mixed bag, I think, is it?
Yeah, mixed bag, but look, we knew it was going to be a tough challenge coming up here, as it always is coming up to Parnell Park, so it was a step up for us. I think you're right, probably patchy performance. I thought when they got the goal just before half time, brought them back into it, and the start of the second half they came out and went at it. So in that period they probably came into it well, but I think we finished strong and tagged on the few scores to give us the victory.
Are you pleased at the manner how you finished? Because they did get it down to 3 points, and at that stage it's just a puck of the ball between the teams, and you kind of showed the mettle that you would expect from All Ireland champions, that finally you really are being pushed in the game and you come up with an answer?
Yeah, look, and I think so. You know, when it was there, we had to respond to it because Dublin, in fairness, were coming back, and as I said, the lads tagged on a few scores which still put the daylight in it. But you know, we still know where we're at. You know, as you alluded to, it's, you know, we want to try and get a more consistent performance over the hour, and that's what we're striving to. And you know, the only way we're going to get that now is by hard work and continuing it. You know, this week in training and getting ready again for the match next weekend.
Attitude issue?
I think there was a number of issues that we addressed during the week in terms of how we approached the games, and you know, we were very focused on that this week, and I think certainly it was our mindset in relation to the last game in particular, and probably the first game, that we identified out as being a key area that we had to work on, and we did a lot of work on that during the week, and you know, it was much better today.
So, like, clear the air type of thing, a few home truths?
There was a few home truths, but there was a few specific issues that we think were catching us, and we addressed them during the week, and you know, we got a focused performance today. For us, the things that we were measuring ourselves against, we had massive improvements on them, and that was very important for us because, you know, last week's performance just was not good enough.
Back Gilroy, Dave McIntyre, after a 6-point defeat for the Dublin Hurlers. It's been a tricky enough start for the Gilroy regime. Let's just run you through the results. Donegal beat Kildare 115 to 3-7 in Ballyshannon. Bit of controversy there, and the Kildare captain was sent off for a second yellow for not having his gum shield. He was en route to the sideline to get his gum shield. The ball got kicked out. He caught it and got booked. And Kildare not happy about that, obviously, because it was a tight enough game in the end. Kerry 14 points, Galway 114 at Austin Stack Park. The coming out of David Clifford as an adult superstar.
Yes.
Mayo 12 points, Dublin 210. The handiest 4-point win that you're ever going to see at McHale Park on Saturday night. And Monaghan beat Tyrone 15-14 in Castleblaney. Any day you beat Tyrone is a good day.
It really is, yeah. Can't argue with that.
Or that you don't have to use an AK. Cork 11, Cavan 14, Porky I can only imagine what Porky was like for the football if the hurling was that bad.
Yeah.
Was the ball bouncing?
I'm not quite sure. I didn't actually see the highlights. I presume barely. Well, it's the usual cliche before the players are sent out. It's like, don't you dare hop the ball on that surface.
Oh, no. Down 110, Clare 112. A big win for Clare in Pork Ashler. Louth 12 points, Roscommon 121 in the Gaelic grounds, and Tipperary 215, Meath 110 in Semple Stadium. Another goal from Míchael Quinlan, who is himself and John Heslin might be the two most interesting and dangerous forwards in the country at the minute.
Yeah, Division 2 is fascinating. I would almost argue that on League Sunday they should just show Division 2 games and not bother showing Division 1 games, because ultimately there's more value in Division 2 as a whole. Nobody wants to get relegated, which is the same in fairness with Division 1, but to a certain extent in Division 1 there's an element of shadow boxing, as in we're better off not making the league final and not showing our hand too early, whereas with Division 2 everybody is going gung-ho for that top two spots. So I think there's an argument to be made that Division 2 is the best division in football. Division
3 pretty good as well. Westmeath 20 points, Sligo 14 in Cusack Park. Longford beat Wexford 112 to 9 points in Pearse Park. Offaly beaten at home by Armagh 1-9 to 115 at O'Connor Park, and Fermanagh beat Derry 116 to 3-8. So the Fermanagh era under Rory going great guns at the moment. In Division 4, Wicklow 10 points, Laois 116 at Not So Fortress Aughrim. Leitrim 218, Limerick 1-9. Pork Sean McDermott, a double scores win for Leitrim against Limerick. London 13 points, Antrim 17 points in Ruislip. Green shoots of renaissance in Antrim football at the minute. And Waterford 2-9, Carlow 212 at Carriganore.
Yeah, it's definitely one to watch, that kind of triumvirate at the top of Division 4. Who's going to be the two that get up? Because you've got Laois and Carlow both on 8 points, Antrim on 7 points. As you say, Antrim unexpectedly to a certain extent playing better than people expect. Like, they were always going to be in the mix for promotion from Division 4.
Well, they weren't. They could easily have just lost every game because they were away at London. Like, there's a possibility that happens. There's no... They can't take anything for granted, but like the population centre they have and the funding that they have access to should really see Antrim be a force in Ulster football.
It's a great project in both codes. I mean, they've had great days in the hurling, but in both codes it's a great project to try and improve there. As you say, with the population base, it's going to be hard to topple Carlow. We've seen what they did in the championship last year, and Laois with the new manager Shugru and the kind of bounce that brings. So it's going to be tough to get out of that division. If they do it, it'll be some start to the year for Antrim. But as I say, it's a three-way between them. You can write off everybody else when it comes to Division 4.
I'll just run you through the hurling results as well. Kilkenny 222, Tipperary 221. 2021 full-time stoppage time winner for Kilkenny, and very, very happy afterwards, Brian Cody. Wexford 20 points, Clare 113 at Innovate Wexford Park, and Cork 115, Waterford 120 at one of the worst pitches you're ever going to see in Páirc Uí Chaoimh in Division 1B. Offaly 121, Laois 116. Dublin, as we've already said, beaten at home 114 to 120 by Galway, and Antrim 13 points, Limerick 321 in Cushendall. So bit of a disastrous performance there from Antrim, even in Cushendall. It's a winner-takes-all clash between Galway and Limerick.
Huge match this Sunday. The league is amazing. Like every game in Division 1A obviously is a cracker again this weekend because of how tight things have got. Like yesterday's results were brilliant for the league, Waterford and Kilkenny winning, but as you say, it's a promotion playoff at the weekend, Galway and Limerick.
I have a feeling that it's a much bigger game for Limerick than it is for Galway, because Galway obviously are the All-Ireland champions, and they don't care.
As we said the whole 8-year drought of Limerick, not a drought, the 8-year kind of static nature of Limerick hurling is what has been talked about. That'll become 9 years if they lose at the weekend, just being stuck in 1B every single year. And as you said, there's nothing wrong with being in 1B, as Galway showed last year, but Galway are better equipped.
If you're Limerick.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they haven't been able to make a breakthrough.
Yeah, so they would definitely benefit from 1A, you would suspect, just because it's huge. There's a huge ceiling on those young players, obviously under 21 champions and all that. So Division 1A hurling for them next year will be a huge bonus for sure. But where's that game being played? I think it's Salt Hill. I think it's a double header actually with the footballers this weekend. So yeah, that'll be a great event. I would suspect that Limerick will probably go fight, but Galway will end up getting promotion.
David Rossiter says, off the ball, making my morning commute from Oxford to London bearable. Good morning to you. I hope you're doing well, David. And yeah, it seems like a fairly nice commute though. Oxford's a nice part of the world to live in.
Yeah, it's a very nice commute. It's probably worth mentioning as well in terms of the GA at the weekend. Like we mentioned Tomas when it comes to Nemo, but I think it was Eoin McKenna pointing out on Twitter how great it was to see the Cork heart back in football, this cockiness. Like you saw Luke Connolly's 2 goals and he was just like, yeah, when he hit the back of the net on both occasions. And it's kind of like that. Like obviously the Kerry person in me hates seeing that, but that's what also makes that rivalry so great. That kind of the pep in the step of the Cork man. You know, just walking around thinking they own the place. And it's great to see that back. It's great to see Nemo back at the top table. Whether or not you're going to beat Kerfin remains to be seen. That's going to be a great All-Ireland final. But as you said, green shoots in Antrim football. Is there green shoots in Cork football potentially?
Let's wait and see.
Let's wait and see is right. It's going to be tough to see if they get promoted from Division 2. I don't think it's going to happen somehow because Cavan are flying high and Tip as well.
Let's hear now from Cody, Brian Cody, and first Michael Ryan. They are speaking with Oisín after Kilkenny beat Tip by a point in Nolan Park.
Michael Ryan, is it fair to say a good game, a good performance, but unfortunately for you, not a good result?
I think it's very fair, Oisín, yeah. Look, we're not going home disappointed about any part of the day other than we didn't win. The boys played well. We got an incredible test here from Kilkenny that we always knew we were going to get, but I thought the boys stood up to it very well. We got a huge setback with 2 quick second half goals, and I think we could have been 7 behind at that point in time, and to go and claw that back and get ourselves into a good position again to try and win this game. They're the positives. But look, I suppose the big thing for us is you couldn't buy that experience, and it's a fabulous experience for any of our players who hadn't experienced playing down in Nolan Park and playing Kilkenny.
What are you looking for from these games? Because we're seeing players that we're very familiar with but playing in different positions, the likes of Ronan Maher, maybe even Míchael Breen, who was immense today, getting those 2 goals and I think 10 points maybe in the end, but either way he did score for you.
Yeah, he did, and absolutely. And look, you know, for our existing players who've been with us for a few years, we're trying to, you know, stretch and let them experience different positions, and I suppose really build a bit of variety into their repertoire that we can use them in multiple positions. I think most of the guys are pretty comfortable with that, given that they play central positions or they move quite forward and quite often for their own teams. For the younger fellas, it's time on pitch, and you just can't buy that. You know, there's no substitute for just getting time on pitch in a place like Nolan Park against Kilkenny. That's a great experience for these guys. They'll remember it for all of their lives until they do it again, of course.
When you have younger players, when you have maybe players who are a bit different to what you've had in the past, do you have to evolve the style a bit? Do you have to change the style? It was noticeable in the last couple of weeks that you're kind of going shorter at times and moving the ball rather than trucking it down and kind of getting guys to win it themselves like you would have done before.
Yeah, well, I think as well, like I said last Sunday, you play the game that's in front of you as well, and you've got to be flexible. You've got to have the ability to play the game in whatever way it's out there. I mean, at the same time, when you have, say, TJ and Walter in the forwards, you have fellas very much capable of winning their own ball too. So it's not a question of going exclusively one way or the other. So you do it whatever your head is telling you to do on the pitch, because I mean the players have to play the game. It can't be played from the sideline.
It is noticeable that you're moving the ball really quick. Is that the kind of skill set that this kind of modern bunch of players, as we'll call them, have, the newer guys, the younger guys?
Yeah, well, they're good hurlers, they're good players, and some different fellas. I mean, we've had a lot of different newer players out there. Some of them have, maybe different qualities than others. But again, it's a question of just playing the game as you see fit on the field, and if a player shows for the ball, obviously you try and give it to him if you can. 2 wins out of 2, that's put you in a nice position. Yeah, well, obviously, like I said, I mean, after the first 2 games were pointless, which meant that we were on a dangerous road towards relegation. That's still alive for us, like I know that, but we're going into the last game now that we can have an influence on what we do ourselves.
He was delighted afterwards on the pitch, joking with Michael Ryan, sharing we'll see you later in the summer, lads.
Yep. Speaking of on-field managerial encounters, Conte versus Mourinho might have disappointed yesterday. Davy versus Cody is this weekend on Sunday after the roaring and bawling comments directed towards Matthew O'Hanlon in the what's it called again?
Walsh
Cup final, and Davy coming out afterwards and having a go at Cody and stuff. Yeah. Hopefully this delivers, because as I said, the disappointment yesterday at Old Trafford, we need a big set of managerial fisticuffs basically, and hopefully they deliver. Hopefully they just go for it and fight. Yeah, more likely to happen in GAA than football, but there's a brilliant piece in the Telegraph, brilliant ridiculous piece in the Telegraph today. It's the Farrell and Wilson caught on camera. It's the tunnel fracas pre-match between England and Scotland, and there doesn't seem to be that much in it, but the RFU will officially blame Scotland for it. Apparently something was said that really upset Owen Farrell to the point where he was furious pre-match. He played really well. The rest of England didn't play very well. But the Telegraph is blah, blah, blah. Here's the moment, here's the picture, and they ringed it up like basically a screen grab of the footage from, it would have been ITV, I think, doing the game. And this is it. The television footage showed teammates pulling the pair apart as bemused spectators and stewards looked on at unprecedented scenes at a major rugby international, and ones more usually associated with football. What? It's spared up your own hole, Telegraph. Spared for Glasgow Rangers versus Glasgow Celtics in the old firm football derby is what they're trying to say. Yeah, exactly. Poor people do this. Yes. Not rugby people. It was on the BBC as well, by the way, so they've got access to those like the holy grail of video footage from the weekend. What did happen? I don't know, but like a bit of pushing, that was it, wasn't it? There was no digs thrown. Okay, well that was disappointing. I like the way the interviewer asked Eddie Jones on pitch afterwards what happened. It's like, good on you. When Eddie Jones is in that cauldron, he can't really be as sarky as he can be in the press room. He kind of has to be a little bit gracious when Murray... It was the ITV interview that Quinny was talking about. That's why I thought it was... there's the piece there. That's it on screen. Yeah. I mean, you buy the Telegraph, you know exactly what you're getting. Yeah. Much better to read their stuff that you can read in the Irish Independent, because they take the good stuff and leave most of that stuff behind. It's good. Selective process right there. Exactly, yeah. I mean, I love loads of the people who write for it, just not the sub-editors. What were we talking about? My funniest moment was when Gabby Logan is explaining that there's not, and it was John Imberdale, there's not going to be any repercussions for the pre-match. The referee can't send them off because whatever you do pre-match doesn't count. He can only send you off for something once the ball is kicked. And you can see the rush from Jono and Paul O'Connell to get the if only we'd known dig in first off the mark though was definitely Jono. He was like, yeah, you can imagine the shit kickings that they would have done pre-match if they'd known. Yeah, the one thing about as well about that game in Murrayfield was that I must have been so happy that Scotland had won, because they kept playing Chelsea Dagger, and after a while I was like, this song's actually all right, even though it's a terrible song, obviously. The Fratelli song. Yeah, it's... Sing it, come on. No, I'm not. Come on. No one's watching, come on. I will not sing the song. Google it. I mean, it's like one of the most... come on, we're live on the show. It's like one of the most well-known songs of all time. It's like it's like a darts song, basically. It could be a darts song. They played it at the RDS quite a bit, actually, after Leinster Trials. They must have got it from Murrayfield. But when bad music is starting to sound... Actually, this is all right. Despite the fact that you've heard it a million times, you're like, wait a minute, this moment must be very enjoyable for me. Someone somewhere is getting their comeuppance. Yeah. Yeah, all right. Here's a snippet from our Heineken Rugby Club Off the Ball Roadshow in the Mansion House on Friday night with Keith Wood, Martin Williams, Brian O'Driscoll and Serge Betson. Have a look at this. Round 3 is the skills challenge.
Tonight's skills challenge is a game we're calling Blind Side Flanker. JP is there to catch Sir should he fall. Keithwood is interfering with play.
Stop it.
He's got to get deducted
Here we go.
points.
Serge Betson.
Oh, it just misses.
No points. Try not to step forward.
Don't
Off
step
the edge
forward.
of the
Whatever you do,
platform.
don't teeter on the brink.
Very high. A cheeky peek.
Here we go. Serge Betson, he's in the crowd. Oh, he's off the stage. He's back on it. It's an amazing piece of skill from Serge Betson. Ladies and gentlemen. It's obviously unbelievably difficult to jump off the stage and then back up. It looks much higher when you're actually on the stage than that angle may look small, but it's much bigger.
Yeah, it's got, you know, that moment when Serge Betson actually rises and you're like, oh wait, you're a rugby player, so you looked a lot smaller on scale when you were on the rugby pitch. I wonder, does he see the opposite way around? He's like watching OTB AM and he's like, wow, Gilroy actually looked, like a
normal human being.
Yeah, and he's tiny. Much the same with the stage that I'm going to leap upon right now.
I always look big beside you, though.
Well, that's the point. It's like the scale is something else.
Huge congratulations as well to Niall Kennedy over the weekend. He won his 11th professional fight on Saturday night in Connecticut, a third round knockout over Aaron Chambers. He is now 11-0. Here's a short clip from Boom, the Niall Kennedy story with Andy Lee.
It was a hard fight.
It was a tough fight, yeah. It was 10 rounds. There
were moments when you could have went either way in terms of...
in the fifth, I remember going back after, first 4 rounds went better than they could have been taught. And I remember walking back after the 4th round thinking, Lord, I have 6 rounds left, you know. And then he had a very good 5th and he had a very good 6th round. And I thought on the way back after the 6th round, this has gone away from me. You've let yourself down in your amateur career, you're letting everything slip away again. And I had all these demons in my head. And
it's those, I know myself in fights, you have a couple of bad rounds and then those negative and they're happening while you're having the bad round.
Yeah.
You're trying to deal with that in your mind, you're trying to deal with the fight in front of you, and you're thinking, this is getting away from me, I'm losing this fight. And all the things that people at home, your family, everything, they're in your thoughts, aren't they?
Yeah, everything's going through your head. And I just kept saying then, I remember in the car thinking to myself, you've made this promise, don't have regrets, let your son look at this video in 20 years time and be proud,
Yeah, congratulations, Niall. You can see that full documentary. It's on offtheball.com it's on youtube.com/offtheball. It's also on facebook.com/offtheball. You'll get it as well on offtheball.com. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channels. You can turn on notifications there because that's where we put up a good bit of our longer stuff too, if you ever want any access to that. And if you've ever missed any of the stuff, there's plenty of sports content ready whenever you are. Anthony Moyes is on tomorrow's show from 7:45 and we'll check in with Niall Kennedy a little bit later on in the week when the soreness eases off from that fight in Connecticut at the weekend. Any final thoughts you want to leave us with?
Well, the other thing that we didn't talk about at the weekend was that the GAA voted against transparency, which is the most inevitable GAA move that's ever existed, and a landslide 80-something%.
Well, they voted to trust the people they send forward from, the county conventions who are like, you gotta trust those lads.
My language slipped there for a moment. Transparency was definitely not the word I wanted to use. As I say, yes, that's it. Just more trust in the people, because of course they're very sensible people and they will always make the right decisions.
Coming out of Congress, I didn't...
Well, John Horne is officially president. He said something along the lines of, it's only sinking in now, and made kind of an impassioned speech along those lines.
Does he have a full year of being, or is it like... That was last year?
That was last year. He was elected last year, sworn in at the weekend. Okay. And and massacred, as it tends to do at Congress, which I guess it's a wider conversation, but whether you like it or not, Congress is that annual reminder that the Church and the GAA are very much still intertwined.
It's very welcoming to the Protestants and Jews and Muslims.
Yeah.
And the atheists.
Yeah, I wonder, are any of the people who voted for or against transparency or voted for their great decisions, are any of them outside of the Catholic Church? Be an interesting one. What's the crossover?
That'd be a good question, but you'll never get an answer to it.
Yeah, that's true.
It's secret. Right. That's pretty much all we got time for you today. You can follow us on all of our social channels, and we will be back bright and early tomorrow at 7:45. A massive show for you tonight. Monday Night Rugby, looking back at a brilliant weekend of rugby from an Ireland perspective, and of course the football show with plenty to talk about as well, given everything that happened yesterday. We'll see you on our social channels across the day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. Good luck.